You're never a stranger when you're in New Orleans. You're never a stranger when you're in New Orleans.
I get it.
No. The mic. No, it actually can move.
Yeah, I might count. Just a run. Okay. We really hypnotized you.
So I want you to move the open bottle of water because I'm going to do this.
Are you sure?
So, yeah. I'm not. This way, everybody will have their own mic. But if you don't want to do it that way, that's fine. I did. Well, I told one of their crew that, so he knows that that's what's going to happen.
Jack looks like he's ready to start. I don't like this. And if it sounded okay, then I had it back here. That's what I did. Perfect. If that works. Okay. Not for bed.
No, it was just left for a minute. There she goes. Hello. Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone. Hey, you know, what a conference, really. I mean, just great presentations. You know, so much catching up. I've noticed there's folks in corners planning next steps. And this goes for you in person, but also for the folks virtually as well. You know, you may not see them, but they're doing the same thing. Now it's time for our grand finale. And first, the eagerly awaited final keynote panel, Philanthropy panel. And then followed by the event no one wants to miss, our closing rally and prize giveaway. So that's what's in store for you. You know, the keynote, the topic is a crucial one. It's the transformative potential of philanthropic collaboration and fostering economic mobility. And I know it's going to be an inspiring presentation. You're in for a treat. Our moderator for the discussion is the remarkable Lynette Bell. She's the president of the Truist Foundation, and she leads the foundation's work on leadership development and, in addition, economic mobility, thriving community, and educational equity. And as you may have heard earlier in the conference, CALE works closely with the Truist Foundation. We have several regions in the southeast part of the country where we're strengthening career pathways and pathways that lead to equitable economic mobility. Joining Lynette, and they're seated in this order, are people who have deep experience and expertise. And that includes Linda Dworick. She's the director of the Baltimore Workforce Funder Collaborative. Linda's devoted her career to enhancing job quality and equitable economic opportunities in employment. Then Patrice Cromwell. Patrice is the vice president for the Center for Economic Opportunity at the Annie E. Casey Foundation. And Patrice focuses on improving educational and employment opportunities, both for low-income workers and parents and their children as well. Marcy Hun, next. Marcy is the Senior Program Director at the Harry and Jeanette Weinberg Foundation. Marcy oversees the foundation's jobs portfolio that aims at improving economic opportunity through employment and training, and it focuses on promoting collaborative approaches. And to her right, or to her left from your point of view, is Alicia Wilson, who's Director of Operations at the GitLab Foundation. Alicia ensures the effectiveness of the foundation strategy and their systems as well in achieving the foundation's mission. That is improving people's lifetime earnings through access to greater opportunities. Now it's my pleasure to turn the panel over to Lynette.
Thank you, Jack, for that great introduction. And thank you all for being here today. This is the grand finale. I'm proud to be here as part of our partnership with CALE, who is a real dear friend to the Truist Foundation. Our partnership and collaboration really focuses on our signature initiative, which is where it starts, which is all about building career pathways, as Jack stated, to economic mobility, placing job seekers into those higher earning and higher demand jobs. But I am so grateful to be on this great panel with these leaders who are driving some of the work around development of workforces and economic mobility, as well as collaborative pathways. And let's jump into it. We're here today to talk about philanthropic collaboration and its potential to really foster economic mobility. More and more, we're seeing collaborative partnerships come into the fold, pushing back against silos and duplicative efforts. So Linda, I want to direct the first question to you.
Okay.
What do you think is driving this shift, and what are the innovations that are exciting examples that you'd like to share today?
The shift towards collaboration, right? Yeah. I think that the shift towards collaboration among funders is really coming out of an understanding that one funder can't do it all, that the issues that we're confronting in workforce development can't really necessarily all be solved at the program level. So there are systems level issues that make it very difficult for people to move into career pathways, to move up from an entry level job into a job that is family sustaining and has good benefits. And the individual grants that are made often to nonprofit organizations to do direct services, while extremely important, right? Most of these nonprofit organizations every day have people coming in their door that need help right now with important problems. But in order to really address the underlying factors that make it so difficult for people to succeed in the labor market, we have to look at systems. And looking across systems necessitates working in partnership, so that we have philanthropy working in partnership with philanthropy, And as you'll hear today, I think Marcy often says this, you meet one foundation, you meet one foundation. So each foundation has its own set of trustees, its own mission, its own set of obligations and strategies. But so if you can put all these bring philanthropy together, they can leverage each other's strengths and abilities to look at the systems level and then partner with public sector funders in communities, cities and states to try to address some of those root issues that are so hard to overcome.
Great, thank you for that. And Marcy, as we look at alternatives, as we talk about creating synergies, and I think, Linda talked about there are systemic issues that have to be addressed with systems. But is there any downwind implications for organizations as you look at working in those kind of synergic relationships?
Sorry, I missed the end piece of that.
Is there any downwind implications for individual organizations as they work
Down.
in a kind of synergized
Yeah.
relationship?
Downside? No, I really feel that, I sit on the Baltimore Workforce Funders Collaborative, which 16 years ago was just 3 of us as funders. And now it's about a dozen of us, including the public system for Baltimore City and Baltimore County. And I really feel that breaking down those silos, having the hard conversations of what the labor market demands are for Baltimore specifically and how we address that, it's really opened the conversations and opportunities for Baltimore City residents. I think that there are programs and strategies that we're working on that have only increased opportunities locally. I also just want to say thank you to Kale for coming to Baltimore and our great city. We're very happy to have you here, so thank you. I hope you enjoyed the city and had fun. I heard some of you had fun last night, but we're not going to talk about that. But, I really do believe that this collaboration and increased collaboration that I've seen over, the past 16 plus years here in Baltimore and nationally has been critically important to moving strategies forward to benefit individuals on their career pathways.
Great, thank you, Marcy. A central component of what you said is really about fostering that economic mobility and ensuring that we are creating sustainable career pathways of diverse talent. I'm curious, what are your thoughts on the organizations and how they create those supportive career pathways, Marcy, from the Weinbergs specifically?
So in creating the supportive career pathways, I think, this past year at Weinberg, we did a review of our portfolio and are looking at best practices and strategies. And so in doing that, we really are doubling down on sector-based strategies, which I think has proven most effective and also has created the most opportunities for individuals who are unemployed or underemployed. I really believe that in looking at data, tracking outcomes is incredibly important, but it's very difficult. And by collaborating with other funders, we're looking at a longitudinal outcome of wage record data to see how programs are impacted long-term and how individuals are actually raising up out of poverty. Just one brief example for a Baltimore organization that provides biotech training for lab associates. Upon graduation, they're earning typically around $15,000 a year. And by the end of the first year, they're typically earning about $42,000 plus benefits. So I think the impact in looking at data and looking at best practices and really focusing on that is critically important.
Yeah, thank you, Marcy, about that. So data, of course, really drives a lot of that decision-making. Lisa, as we look at some of the programmatic approaches or funding models that are out there that allow for this work to be done successfully, what have you really seen and what would you talk about?
Yeah, I think it varies in a number of different ways. It's been really interesting to see how different partnerships are moving the work forward. We launched an AI for Economic Opportunity Fund, and we're really surprised at the number of funders that wanted to come and learn along the way with us. We're new to the scene. We've only been operating for less than a year, and so it was great to have others like Walmart and OpenAI and Schmidt Futures and others that are coming and working with us. And I think taking those learnings that foundations have been looking at for years, for decades, and trying to build on them and not just trying to replicate the same thing over and over again allows us to have more impact. If we can take those lessons, see what others have done, use them as lessons learned, not see them as failures, applaud them for taking those risks, it allows us to help communities in a more efficient and effective manner. And I think, as Marcy said, like using that data is critical to being able to help populations that really need more focus, more support, and that often it takes a lot more resources to help them.
That's really important because when you look at kind of the risk appetite in nonprofit space, you're like, oh, we can't fail, but that failure teaches us a lesson. And then to utilize that for intelligent learnings to create technology platforms, I think is really critical. So I want to switch this up a little bit. Patrice, I'm coming to you with the next question. To build on this, we've seen some pushback against DEI, language of equity by policymakers, of course, the ruling by the Supreme Court, and how are you responding to that at your organization? I know Annie Casey is a big nonprofit and doing a lot of great work across the country. What advice will you give to philanthropists today, Patrice, and practitioners who are navigating these new headwinds?
Well, I think we're all wrestling with some of the new legal implications for that. At Casey, we've done a couple of things. First, we brought in some legal counsel to just understand the ruling better, not only as it affects post-secondary, but it also affects some of the corporate titles that they're working toward. The first thing we decided is we are not budging from our racial equity goal, which is central to all of our work. And in many respects, Annie Casey was built from the UPS family, the original founder, and still half of our board is from UPS, and we measure everything. So what we talk about relative to equity is we are motivated by solving disparities that the data shows us. So we are responding to working primarily with youth and young adults of color because the data tells us they're not getting the same opportunities than others. So we're being particular, we're looking at our language and making sure before we, for instance, in a scope of work for a grant, because some of these things could be pulled. I know a number of our grantees have already been questioned. We make sure there's a roadmap to how we came about our implementation plan. And often it's driven by looking at data, disaggregating the data not only by race and ethnicity, but geography and age, and staying true to our principles around racial equity and showing that we're not discriminating. We are going where the data is telling us to go.
Yeah, thank you for that. I think a lot of organizations, and I know nonprofit partners are struggling with that as well, but I love that you said we're motivated to solving disparities and staying true to our implementation plan, because that's critical in the face of this new headwind. And so Linda, as we think about this, how do you maintain the momentum for that continued growth, not only for your mission, but for the communities that you support here in Baltimore?
Yeah, so I know Marcy mentioned we started off our work. So I represent a funders collaborative in Baltimore, and we started off with just a couple of funders, the Annie Casey Foundation, the Harry and Jeanette Weinberg Foundation, and the Able Foundation, which is a large influential local foundation here in Baltimore. At our table, our group meets once a month, and we have really deep and meaningful conversations among funders. Also the City of Baltimore Mayor's Office of Employment Development was also one of our founding members. So we have created an environment where funders come together every month and really get in the weeds of talking about what's happening in our workforce ecosystem, and what are the issues and what are the solutions and how can they collaborate. And so our work, and we try to stay up to date on what's happening by engaging with the workforce development community in Baltimore, by seeking their input. We have created something, we just recently created something we called Workforce Community Conversations in Baltimore. And we had our first Workforce Community Conversation event in October. And what we did was, we wanted to really create a space where we could have open and honest conversation between funders and workforce development practitioners in the city of Baltimore. So we created a planning committee, which met several times over the first 9 months of this year. And that committee was balanced between funders and workforce development grantees. And together they created an agenda for a conversation. We held a conversation with about 50 folks in a room where we really dug into what's happening in the ecosystem. What's the truth of what's happening? Let's really get into it, because oftentimes when you have these conversations between grantees and funders, they're reserved. They're not transparent and honest. So we had some really transparent and honest conversations. We got some feedback from communities, and we see this as a first step. We're going to continue having these conversations. We're now bringing a group again of grantees and funders together to plan the next one, and we're gonna keep having them. And the reason I mention this as a response to your question is this energizes everybody. When you can really dig in honestly and say, for example, I don't know if you all are seeing this in your communities, but things aren't the same as they were before the pandemic. Organizations are having a really hard time recruiting and maintaining staff. They are having a hard time recruiting and maintaining participants for their programs. People are not showing up. And it's always been a struggle, but it's different now. It's more. And as a group, we don't really even understand this fully yet. So these conversations that then lead to questions about what are we measuring? Are we measuring the right things? Are the milestones and goals that are being set for workforce development, do they make sense in the context for it? And so I think that when we're having these kinds of honest conversations, it attracts more people to the table. People both who are implementing the work on the ground and funding the work, they want their work to be meaningful and have impact. And so when we can have these honest conversations and look at the issues that are happening at the micro level and the macro systems level together, we create energy and we create more momentum for change.
I love that. The partnerships have to happen on the ground and then grow to that macro level. And I'm going to go off script a little bit. Patrice and Marcy, because you both run foundations that are really impactful. And let me start with Patrice. Is there a difference in what's happening in the public-private space around collaboration since the pandemic? I know we all kind of buckled down during the pandemic. We were all trying to disperse because we knew nonprofits were calling, foundations saying, hey, I really need the support because of basic care and basic needs based on the pandemic. But post-pandemic, what are you guys seeing as far as some of the trends?
I think the pandemic really made us all dig deeper in terms of partnerships. We realized we're not having the impact at the scale we'd like to have. We're not addressing the root causes. And with some of the changes at the federal level, lots of new public resources available. How do we work together to mobilize dollars so that many of you and others can really put it to work? A good example of that is the initiative called Launch or Launch Pathways. As we were looking at deploying dollars, we thought, how can we put some emergency dollars out to the community post-pandemic, or actually it was sort of mid-pandemic, to really take advantage of all the new dollars that K-12 has access to. And a number of funders were wrestling with the same thing, whether it was Bloomberg or Gates. And so we ended up pooling dollars so that there were technical resources to provide to districts all around the country in terms of developing innovative plans and high quality solutions for career pathways in K-12. If that technical assistance wasn't available, first, getting the money out, procurement was an issue, but also doing something innovative versus just putting it to use in the same way, which hasn't always produced the same outcomes. So I think the pandemic made us realize these problems are more challenging at a system level. We have to work together and we have to hold ourselves accountable to be good stewards of our funding. If 6 funders are asking you for different performance measures, different requirements, then we're not helping you not only deploy the dollars for high quality work, but also have a huge burden administratively on top of it.
Marcy?
And I would add, the public dollars are much bigger than philanthropy will ever be. So it's important to recognize that and to understand that. And, what is the purpose and goal of philanthropy? And in many ways, it's to innovate, it's to scale, it's to replicate, it's to test models that hopefully then can be carried out longer term and sustained by either government or additional funding mechanisms. I think that it's critical, and during, COVID and now if we're really post-COVID, there are some efficiencies that I think have taken place, but also there's an important focus on collaboration. And there are opportunities where I think, the Funders Collaborative here and the Mayor's Office of Employment Development are working, I think, closer than ever, and aligning our work and knowing where government should step in or where the collaborative needs to step in due to potential, challenges or time lags or other opportunities where the Funders Collaborative can be much more nimble in many ways. So it's important to know where your strengths are and where also the challenges can be. I would also add, just for organizations right now, I think it's really important that, leadership development is focused on, and that we support something called a Workforce Leadership Academy in partnership with the Aspen Institute. There are 8 academies going on right now nationally. There's one here in Baltimore. And I think investing in the future of the workforce staff and their leadership development for those who are going to be stepping up next is incredibly important for the field, and another, step that philanthropy should take as well.
Yeah, that's really critical. I think you and Patrice said something really critical, Marcy, is that as we mobilize dollars, philanthropy should be testing and innovating and really be on that kind of cutting edge. And so, Elise, I'm going to toss this to you. Another trend that we see impacting the workforce for some time, but rapidly developing in real time, is technology. And of course, AI. It's on everybody's lips. Everybody's talking about it, whether they understand it or not, we're talking about it. As we think about economic opportunities, particularly for low-income workers in marginalized communities, how is tech really impacting the workforce development in these communities and related programs that both Patrice and Marcy talked about a little bit?
Yeah, so I feel like I should say this. We are GitLab Foundation, but we do focus in areas other than just tech and AI. We are classic workforce economic development funders. So tech and AI is one area of focus of ours. And as I mentioned, we did launch an AI for Economic Opportunity Fund. Over 200 applications were received from nonprofits around the country that are already testing how AI is being used within these communities and in these groups. We have a public handbook that's on the website. It's fully open for anybody to look at, anybody to contribute to. You can see examples of what's happening. And I think, there's one example that you all would be interested in, and how you use, AI with networks of colleges and universities, to help improve completion rates for students who are at risk. There's opportunities that help others try and manage and navigate the benefit system so that they can move forward with their studies if they have financial difficulties. There's a lot of interesting things out there that people are testing and scaling and experimenting with. And yes, everyone's talking about AI. It's the sexy new thing. And I think we all just need to brace ourselves that it's happening. And so, there isn't a question of how we do it or whether we do it. It's we're doing it. So how can we make sure that we're being thoughtful in how we approach AI, and how can we think about how it's impacting populations that we all care about?
Yeah, thank you for that. In a similar vein to tech, data has become really paramount in philanthropy. And I think we've been talking about it and talking around it today for sure. But as we strive to not only tell the stories of our work in our communities, but to ensure that we're having the impact to really achieve success, we know that using different language to describe or do that storytelling is critical to the work. And we all do it in a very unique way. But as you're speaking to multiple audiences, the question becomes, how do we really go about it that it really shows and drives that impact? I came across a data point that I found very compelling at the National Committee for Responsive Philanthropy. It showed that foundations have invested at least 50% of their grant dollars in underserved communities and had a higher impact and return on investment than those that did not. The report analyzed 146 foundations and found that those that met the 50% benchmark generated $115 in benefits for every $100 they spent, compared to $41 for those that did not invest that way. Patrice, as you think about this, how do you leverage data to tell your stories and really demonstrate that proof of impact?
That's a great question. Well, one of the things the Annie Casey Foundation does is called a Kids Count Report. Every year, we look at a series of indicators across health, economic well-being, education, and assess how that state is doing on child well-being. And in each of the states, 50 states, we have an advocate, a Kids Count partner that actually takes that data and brings it to key parts of the state, depending upon where a state is weak or where a state is really strong. And it's really motivating when you see the data and it's broken down by geography, but also can be broken down by city and county to pinpoint where are some of the places where we need to co-invest. We've taken that data. We just had our, I think, our 30th anniversary of Kids Count, doing it every year, and realized when we looked at our deployment of capital, it was somewhat skewed more to the northern part of the US. And so over the last 5 to 7 years, we've really been deepening our impact and focus on deploying dollars in the South and Southwest. And that's totally driven by data, because the 10 states that are struggling the most are, for the most part, in the South and Southwest. So I'm very much in belief of the power of data. We are a Big Tent foundation in that we're bipartisan. And when you propose solutions that are built around data, you're less apt to get disagreement for political reasons, because everybody can see the data directly. So I believe that not only we should be collecting it, but be supporting our grantees so they're able to collect data, think about continuous improvement, and have the tools to advocate for what they think is best.
I love that. I think advocating with data is a really critical point. I know as a funder, we clearly ask for a lot of data impact points from our grantees, but the data that we're driving is helping us to not only drive decisions, but drive strategy. So I love that Casey's staying on that. Elisa, as we think about this, how do you leverage data, particularly when you're working in collaboration with others who may have a different approach to data sets, and any lessons learned you can share?
Yeah, so, we have this main North Star. For every dollar that we give, we want to see that low-wage workers' incomes are increased by $100. It's a very specific marker that takes a lot of different data points to understand. Coming into this space, we understand that not all grantees have the capability to understand the inputs into that. And we don't want to put that burden on them. So for us, it's about how do we work with them to find out what types of data they're gathering, what information can we track, can we provide more resources for them, whether it be capacity or funding, to help them really figure out how they can tell a story with the numbers that they're collecting. And I think that's critical. And I think, one of the most difficult things is that we're all looking at different metrics, right? And that makes it really challenging. And you have to be flexible, I think, in terms of how you approach it and what you're looking at to make sure that you can not, silo yourself, because you want to work with other funders, but they may not be looking at that metric, and you want to work with grantees who may not have the resources to have, a measurement team. We don't want to penalize those organizations. So how can we, as the funder with the resources, support them as they figure out what the story is from the data they're collecting or the data they should be collecting to help them be more compelling and be able to understand their impact, which is, I think, critical for all organizations.
Yeah, really great. I love the flexibility piece of that and ease of use for that end user who are nonprofits based on the size and their capacity. You all are working on systems level change in one way or the other. We talked about it today through long-term program strategies, as well as your portfolios that really impact ecosystems holistically. As you partner with other system-minded funders, systems change is also considered a buzzword, if I might be honest, that we often hear these days in the philanthropic world. Linda, I'm really curious, what does systems change specifically mean to you when you think about pathways and economic mobility for the community that you're serving?
Yeah, so a few years ago, I had just before the pandemic, had the opportunity through our collaborative to interview about 40 different organizations who were serving individuals in the workforce development space in Baltimore with the question of, we have a number of programs that had really great employment outcomes, but they're small. So the question was really, what would it take to scale up across the system to serve more folks from Baltimore? And what I got back from almost everybody was a couple of themes. One was, we can work with an individual to help them get the skills they need for employment. But if there's no transportation to the job, they don't have a car, there's no public transportation, well, they're not going to do very well because they can't get there. If they don't have a childcare option, they're not going to be able, and they get sick one day, or their kid gets sick and they're like, I got to go home and get my kid out of school, they're going to lose their job. If they are, there are also a lot of people who can't even get into the skills training programs because they're coming with a lot of barriers, for example, math skills, because they were able to graduate from high school, but their math skills are still at a 4th grade level. There are all these kind of issues that go beyond just providing the skills. And then furthermore, when you start talking to these programs about, could you expand? There's the employer problem. Well, gee, there's just not enough good jobs out there that pay the wages that our folks need, or can have the benefits or provide the dignity of work. So when we talk about systems, this is one set of systems. There's just around these systems that are you can't really solve the transportation problem by buying somebody a bus pass. This is a systems level issue that we need commitment from at a national level down to the local level. We can't really solve the problem of career pathways unless we're able to engage with the labor market and try to create better jobs. We know that in Baltimore, many of women of color in particular, and this is true across the country, are working in jobs that during the pandemic we called essential, right? These are childcare providers, home health aides, nursing assistants. We need people in those jobs to take care of our children and our elders and our sick. But these jobs structurally don't offer the wages or the benefits that one can live off of. I think the average early childcare worker is earning around $11 an hour in Baltimore. You could go to Chipotle and you're going to make more money. And the pathways for those jobs into, you all are here talking a lot about pathways. The pathways don't really exist in a meaningful way. These have to be addressed at the systems level. And so that for me is what systems change is about. It's about looking at these overarching legislative issues, the way we structure our economy, the way we structure our communities to provide access to good jobs for our individuals.
Yeah, I think you're right. The systems change has to start at the policy advocacy level as we're shaping not only language around law, but how we are actually executing on that before it gets down to that grassroots level.
Yes.
So it all is very connected in the
Yeah.
ecosystem, as you stated. And Marcy, as we think about this on systems change, looking ahead, what is your hope for the future of systems change to really make that economic mobility a reality based on what Linda has stated today, and how can we work together?
Yeah, well, I was just reflecting on some of the work of the collaborative and how important it is at that table that there are funders who focus on policy and advocacy. There are funders like myself who focus on the direct service, who wants to make the case to inform those policy and advocacy decisions or recommendations. I think it really comes back to the collaboration, and my hope is that through collaboration, those policies will impact, for many years to come, and we'll be able to make some of the changes that are needed. I also really feel that the burden on grantees for reporting and having all of these different, metrics. In Baltimore, we have a common performance metric, and that's been approved by the Workforce Development Board here. And that's what organizations locally should be using and what we're trying to do moving forward. And so I think the challenges for the organizations who are doing the hard work, the work of philanthropy and advocates is incredibly important. And I really want to see more policies that will make it more effective and create more opportunities for individuals who are starting on their career pathways to have opportunities to move up. And we can't do this alone. Employers have to be hand in hand with us and working with us, and also looking at their internal systems for how, their employment opportunities and how are maybe blocking some individuals who would be ready for a specific job, even if perhaps they don't have their high school diploma, or perhaps they don't have the college degree, where they may be able to do a job effectively, and to really recategorize how some of the job postings are provided. I think that there's a lot of pieces to this. I could go on and name more, but I really do want to. I'm hopeful that we can create synergy and be a louder voice to help affect those policies and changes.
Absolutely. And so in the last few minutes, I'm going to go to you, Elisa, really quickly. So if you had to leave one thought with the audience around collaboration in the space of philanthropy, as we talk about driving mobility, what would you provide?
Yeah, so let's collaborate, but let's not slow down. So that's my one fear. Like, let's not take a year to figure out what that looks like. Let's be open to risk while collaborating, and leave space to be comfortable in that area. I just think it's what we need to do. It's hard, it takes practice, but be risky as you collaborate and move quickly.
I love that, open to risk and while collaborating. Bankers don't believe in that, even though we assess this. Patrice, coming to you, same question. I think that, one of the things we wanted to talk today was a lot of things. We've hit systems change. We talked about data. We talked about capacity of organizations. At NEKC, you guys do things on a global level in a way that really impacts communities at that baseline level. What thought would you leave with the organizations here today about collaborative philanthropy?
I would say, relative to collaboration, to make sure the core beneficiaries are part of that collaborative. We have invested a lot in youth leadership, youth engagement, parent engagement. Depending upon the work that you do, it really changes the dynamic in terms of what solutions are available, what is most in need and desired by the communities that we're serving. So I would say be inclusive in that collaborative. And I'd also say, think about the labor market itself also as a system, because that is one of my hopes, that we create a more inclusive economy so that everyone has equal and open access to opportunity.
I love that, more inclusive economy. We keep hearing that as a buzzword too, but I think what you're saying is that, drive the work in a way that keeps everybody moving forward in an equitable manner. And I love the fact that Casey's done all of these great studies on it. I do brag about y'all a lot when I talk about you. So,
well, there's one example that comes to mind. We've been trying to get educated on AI. And in Germany, a company has been trying to move forward relative to AI, and they've created a worker council so that any major change, they get the input from workers. And I think if we can learn from some of the companies and organizations that are embracing AI, we can, try to be proactive versus waiting until it affects us.
I love that, not standing on the sideline, letting it happen to you, but getting in the game early so that we know how we can use that. And I think the other piece is that risk and the systems change has to be part of the AI discussion as we talk about building collaboration and philanthropy. And so that's our time here today. I want to thank each of these great panelists for their great input and dialogue.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jack and Earl, for this opportunity. This has been a great experience, and I hope you got enough out of this. Next, I'd like to welcome Earl back to the stage to close out today's event. Thank you, Earl.
I would assume, yeah.
So first off, I want to say thank you to Lynette, Linda, Patrice, Marcy, and Alicia. That was some really great insight. Really appreciate having you on the closing panel here. For those of you that do not know me, I'm Matt Waltz. I'm the Senior Vice President of Partnerships and Development at Kale. I think everybody knows Earl. On behalf of everybody at Kale, I want to say how appreciative we are to all of our sponsors and all of our exhibitors, especially NGen, National University, Inside Track, and Employ Prince George's. And of course, thanks to all of you, your presence has made 2023 our most successful conference ever. Great video, great memories. As Earl mentioned in his welcome address, the Kale community is strengthening and continues to grow through diverse strategic partnerships, all with a common focus on adult learners and workers. I think we're going to see more of that in 2024. More collaboration from stakeholders across the education and employment ecosystem means more opportunities to further Kale's mission and more opportunities to further equitable economic mobility. Thank you for making this week such a success, and thank you for being the critical part that brings together learning and work every day of the year. Please stay connected and engage with us on Kale Connect, on social media, or feel free to email us anytime you'd like to discuss how we can further collaborate or how we can better meet your needs. I want to thank my colleagues at Kale, especially Elizabeth Warner and Brooke Pierman. Elizabeth and Brooke's work really just never ends. They put on or help put on a great event. They plan all the little details like writing speeches for all of us and really help put everything together. And I know, as you can see already, they're already working on the 2024 conference. And speaking of the 2024 conference, I look forward to seeing you all in just 355 days when we will be celebrating our 50th anniversary. And I might add, it will be in New Orleans and on Halloween. So it will be a really good time all around.
You're never a stranger when you're in New Orleans. Our hospitality roots run deep here. That's why New Orleans is built to host. While you're here, explore the hidden gems of the city like you're a local. Take note of the rich history steeped in our architecture. It's a compelling blend of stories that connect us. The tempos and harmony that fill our streets and your meeting spaces are sure to increase productivity and inspire creativity. And the whole experience is not complete without our menus that are designed to nourish the mind and soul. It's in the unplanned interactions that happen in our neighborhoods that allow us to share new perspectives that contribute to ideas and support the success of our goals. New Orleans creates the perfect backdrop for collaboration and infinite possibilities. New Orleans, we're built to host.
Really exciting. It seems like we're on a food tour here. Chicago last year, Baltimore this year. I definitely had my fill of crab cakes. Looking forward to oysters and all the fun food in New Orleans next year. So everybody have a wonderful weekend and a great holiday season. And now the fun part, Elizabeth and Jeff are going to handle some door prizes. So thank you again, everybody.
Thanks so much, Matt. Thanks, Earl. Thanks, Brooke, for bringing up the raffle drum. That's always exciting. Joining me to announce our lucky winner or winners, I should say, is Jeffrey Baptiste. You may have noticed he's on our conference committee, so we're very happy to have him here from that perspective. He was also a panelist for us, and he is the senior manager with Verizon's Learning and Development Team, and a member of the Advisory Council for NACTEL, or the National Alliance for Communications Technology Education and Learning, which is a bit of a mouthful, but very important work. Jeffrey, thanks for helping us close out the conference. Do you want to kick things off?
Absolutely. So we just saw a video of next year's conference destination. So what better way to close this out than go ahead and offer a free registration for 2024 in New Orleans?
You want to draw?
Sure. Let me mix this up a bit. Okay. The winning number is 495-497. 495-497. I was supposed to go congratulations.
It's okay. We'll mix it up.
We'll mix it up a bit. 495. Actually, the lighting's bad on the stage. Hold on. Odd. It's actually a 6. 496-497. There we go. We have a winner. Congratulations. And we know we'll be seeing you in New Orleans. Are we taking her name or
Yes.
afterwards? Okay, that's good.
Yep. We'd love to get your name.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Speaking of which, we've had a really engaged virtual audience, so we just want to mention that we'll also be raffling off a free registration for our virtual audience as well, which is very exciting. You may not have seen them for the folks in person, but our staff who've been manning that piece, so we've had a lot of engagement, a lot of good questions coming through, so we're glad to have them join us from home. So now let's go ahead and move on to the Amazon gift cards. The first one goes to the winner of the mobile app game. And it looks like the last time I checked, about 20 minutes ago, it was Aileta Zerneberg. Is she here? Yay! Thank you.
Sure.
For those who don't know, I think this is your second year winning it. So if you want to be a winner, be coached by that lady right there. Okay, so now another drawing for the $100 Amazon gift card.
Are you gonna try?
You do it.
Okay.
You have lucky hands.
And this time I know to have the light this way. 496-467.
Okay. Okay. All right, congratulations.
Okay, and let's wrap things up. We've got a set of Beats Studio Buds here. And let's see who the final winner is. And we'll go ahead and wind this up one more time. Pull out a number. And that number is 496-454. There we go, right up front.